We help people communicate more effectively in all areas of life. So when you're working with a communication coach, this goes down to not only how are you communicating in your career, but also how you're communicating in your relationships. And that's a really important thing, because as you start to build these communication skills, as you start to really notice how you're talking with other people, it's going to start to shift how you communicate with yourself. And what ultimately is happening when you're working with a clinician or any professional, you start to raise your level of awareness. When you're working with professionals, and this is what I love about the difference between working with professionals and venting to a friend. When you're venting to a friend, you're having a conversation that's very personable, and they're going to possibly have a different judgment, have a different perspective. They might be on your team, they might not be on your team. When you're working with professionals, especially in the what I affectionately refer to as the art of communication, when my clients bring their difficulties to me, we're looking at them on the table. Now, the difference is we're looking at them together. They're right out in front of us. Neither of us are pointing a finger. And especially when you work with professionals, there should be no finger pointing in place. This isn't about shaming or guilting somebody for how they feel in their experiences. This is about looking at it, saying, I'm having this difficulty. Let's look at it together. Let's be solution oriented and navigate the ways that we can look at these experiences and to notice this communication pattern as a way that we can notice it and improve upon it if that's what the individual is wanting.
And something that I just want to go back in terms of what you said in the way of being that someone that's quite in isolation in terms of those bad thoughts and good thoughts. And sometimes when one thing that, and again, I'm someone that's actually, I'm not afraid of being vulnerable, because I believe that being vulnerable, it will help a person that actually listens to this podcast and be able to give them that hope that anything is possible in a way, and be able to actually tell their story and be able to realize that it's not that bad. So in a way of, when back, I believe back in, when was it? I think 2021, yeah, 2021, when actually I was dealing with a lot of emotions, mixed emotions, or actually 2022, 2021, when I had dealt with my own emotions, not knowing actually what I actually felt. And I'm used to be a certain person that actually stayed alone in a room and not wanting to go out. And while I was there, I isolated myself from other people in a way of, at some point, I had different, I would say, thoughts of actually, as much as I know, one thing that you also mentioned, awareness, raising awareness, I did have awareness, personally, and I knew what were good thoughts, what were bad thoughts. And sometimes we end up actually focusing on more of bad thoughts. And I always wanted to know why, in a way, of why are we actually listening to the bad side of ourselves and allowing ourselves to actually be trapped in this. I don't know how to actually explain be trapped. So in a way of, I think it's similar to what you said in terms of my similar question actually. Now as I'm realizing it. And going back to in terms of the initial conversation in terms of awareness, how does one cultivate awareness? Because it's something that John does to out of the blue that you already have. Because I also believe sometimes at some point that I compare it with resilience, because resilience you just don't get resilience. You have to first work on it, then you actually realize that this thing didn't hurt, this pain do the harm that I thought it would do. How does one cultivate awareness?
So when it comes to that, especially you had mentioned tending to lean toward the negative. And I love that because we are wired that way. We didn't initially, if you think back to our very early years of being human, when we emerged from the cave, this is the example that I love. When we emerged out of the cave, our first thought wasn't, wow, what a nice sunny day. Our first thought was, what's the threat? What's going to hurt me? What else is going on? And our own thoughts, especially now in 2024, when we have this greater level of awareness, our own thoughts can cause us stress, and that's proven. The more negative that you are with those harsher thoughts or those less than helpful thoughts, it takes a toll on our nervous system and it causes more stress. So how do we navigate around that? To really become the investigator of your thoughts and to have an open mind of how else might I look at it? So especially as, like I mentioned, loving language to the level that I do, when we start to play with our language, we can really start to shift our thoughts. Adding words like might, okay? Think of this one. I can't lead this team. I'm a terrible communicator, okay? I can't lead this team. Then you can start to play with it. If I could, what might that look like? If I could, what might that look like? That's how we start to shift from that negative thought into that more growth-minded thought. That's how we start to shift from that limiting thought into that expansive thought. And that's really important, especially whenever we add the word might to it. How might I solve this problem? How might I navigate? Rather than thinking, how will I navigate? How might I navigate? Now, the difference is one word, but we've now taken our thought from how am I going to navigate this? It's very limiting of, oh my God, how am I going to navigate this? To how might I start to navigate this? Notice the shift in my tone, but also notice that I added one word, which took my very limited, narrow thinking and expanded it. How might I? When we start to play with our language, we can start to expand our awareness and our thought flexibility. If you think about it, we are the original Google search engine. The better the question we ask ourselves, the better the answer. So being open to asking yourself different questions and being open to starting to question your own thoughts and your own communication abilities. How might I start to communicate better with myself? How might I start to communicate better with those around me? How might I lead my business better? How might I take better care of my team members and help them so that we can ultimately reach the goal that we're wanting to? How might I communicate more effectively with other people? Adding that language and starting to play with that language can really start to shift that level of awareness from narrowed thinking to growth-minded thinking.
And just to add what you've said in terms of we don't look at things in a positive way. We firstly look at things with a threat. For example, recently, this thing happened to me recently, whereas I don't know, I'm used to doing in terms of having 5 interviews per day, in terms of consistently, in terms of every hour I have an interview 5 times. At first, I used to have, in terms of being tired of actually pushing myself, of actually doing this, in terms of if I need to do that. Even when I did 2 of them, 3 of them, I used to be tired. And fast forward Monday, I did 5, and I had this feeling that I want to do more. And in all honesty, I don't know what happened, what shift actually happened upon me to be able to have this mentality of actually no. It's fine. You're used to this, because imagine doing this for the last 4 years and did not be able to actually get too used to it. And it's quite something that is quite different. And sometimes you find it hard actually to believe things that you actually did and try to actually question yourself of what is going to happen. Since I'm not having been tired of doing this, imagine spending 5 hours on doing interviews. There must be a catch in terms of that. Because I feel like it's a mentality that I believe that we all have. And in terms of speaking about true, in terms of the professional area, you spoke about as you as an expert within language. So how do you take care of your own mental health in terms of in terms of going the line of saying that, okay, now it's enough. Now I need to take care of myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not completely immune to it of wanting to hit that gold standard. What I noticed, and this was something very powerful, when you meet a goal, A, do you celebrate? Or B, do you move the goalpost?
Mm.
When you set it and say, okay, I'm going to complete these 3 projects today. And when you complete the 3 projects, do you celebrate or do you say, I didn't get to 4, I didn't get to 5? Mm. When we do that, we're robbing ourselves of the awareness that we did succeed at our goal. And it's important for us to really recognize that we accomplish things, because that's something that we need to quite literally draw our awareness to and say, yay, we did that. That was good enough. And to recognize that good enough is a standard. Perfection is this perception of it has to be 100% perfect, and you can constantly tweak that. And you constantly move the marker. But if you, rather than pursuing perfection, if you pursue excellence, excellence could always be built upon. Whereas perfection, okay, great, I had the most perfect day. Okay, well, that's accomplished now. What about tomorrow? You can constantly chase that and you can get stuck in that loop. But if I met my marker of excellence today, great. That's something to celebrate and to acknowledge and to really take notice. What does excellence look like to you? What does success look like to you? What do those goals look like to you? And to write them down, to raise that level of awareness of what it looks like to you, to really define it. Because you can get in a back and forth with yourself and your inner critic of, hey, I met these goals. And then your inner critic goes, no, didn't meet this, didn't do that, didn't do this. And you're robbing yourself of that good feeling, but also of your own success. That's shitting all over yourself. That's, dumping right on yourself rather than really celebrating and saying, I did this. Let's set the next marker for what that is. So it's important to be able to find that balance and to also define what it looks like for you. Very specifically, you, because you might also have somebody else chirping in your ear going, no, this is what we need. This is what we need. Your marker of excellence and their marker of excellence might be different. This is why I really encourage people to define it for them.
And it's something that you said about goals when you meet a goal. And it takes me back to a line by Alex Hormozy, where he said that you have achieved everything that you said that would make you happy. And it's something that sometimes at some point in our lives, we actually take those goals and make our happiness. And I feel like that's where we are wrong, because once you reach that certain goal, you want to achieve more and achieve more and achieve more. Yeah. And when you fail, you end up blaming yourself in terms of saying that it's all my fault. I didn't do enough. As you said, that doing those 3 assignments that you said you're going to do, and you accomplish them, and you move on to the 4th one, and you don't achieve that one, and you blame yourself. And it's quite something that I believe that we need to relook in a way and try to take care of ourselves. And I agree, yeah, we want success, we want to be successful, we want to be happy, but happiness requires you to take care of yourself. But that's one thing that I believe. It requires, and in terms of